Lots of people are being denied their permanent residence applications to come into Canada as skilled workers. And one of the reasons being that they do not have enough funds in their bank accounts to support their stay in Canada, which is known as either the proof of funds or the settlement funds. If you are curious about how much it's going to cost you to move your family into Canada as a skilled worker, or you're already in the planning stages, then this video is for you. In this video, I'm going to give you a breakdown of how much each step is going to cost on average, and this is going to help you to plan properly for your application process so that you do not wait to get to the end and then you do not have enough funds and you may have to give up on your dreams. So if you are new to my channel, my name is Sandra. I recently moved to Canada from Ghana with my family, and on this channel I share resources to help you on your immigration journey or to settle in as a newcomer in Canada. So for starters, one of the things that you would want to do when you are planning to get into the express entry system and coming through the federal skilled worker program, or basically most of the immigration programs in Canada, is to do your educational credential assessment, right? And there are a couple of institutions that you can use to have your education credentials assessed, right? But in this video, I'm going to be focusing on a popular one known as the World Education Service, known popularly as WES, right? So before you come in, whether you have a diploma, a first degree, or a second degree, PhD, whatever it is, you need your credentials to be assessed so that Canada is sure that whatever credentials you are bringing in is equivalent to what they have here, right? So WES is one of the platforms that you can use to have your credentials assessed. However, WES does not apply to medical doctors, pharmacists, and architects or trade occupations. So if you're in any of these occupations, you need to find the relevant bodies to have your credentials assessed. So I've put in a couple of costs here related to the various applications, and I'll be referring to it. So when you see me bend, it means that I just want to be sure that I'm giving the right information based on when I did my research, right? So for the World Education Service, once you get on their website, there are a couple of services they offer, but you need to select the educational credential assessment. And in Canadian dollars, this is about 256 Canadian dollars, right? So you need to make that payment on their platform, submit your documents, and then have your credentials assessed. So this does not have to do with when you are chasing your transcripts in your school or chasing your certificates in your school. All those costs are relative depending on the country you are in, or depending on the institution that you are getting your certificates and your transcripts from, right? So this is just what the WES charges. And they also have a service where you can pay extra and then you directly work with your school to get all those things done. So it's about $100 or so. So if you add it to this, it comes to about 356, right? So that will be for one person. So if you're coming with your spouse, you know that you'll be doing ×2 of that. So depending on which country you are in, you can convert that to cedi or naira or pounds to be able to know how much it's going to cost you, and then you can prepare ahead. So after you've done your educational credential assessment, assessing your degrees and qualifications, the next thing that you need to do is your language testing. For the language assessment, there are also a couple of institutions that you can use. The popular one is the IELTS. For French, there's also the TEF and the TCF. There are other programs that you can use, but I'm going to use the popular one, which is the IELTS. The IELTS, it differs, the charges differ per country, but on average, it costs about 300 Canadian dollars to get this done, right? If you're writing from Canada, let's say the test is valid for 2 years. So let's say you came in as a student and your validity period is over and you want to write another one, it costs about 367 Canadian dollars. In Ghana, it costs about 3,400 Ghana cedis, which is about 302 Canadian dollars, right? In Naira, I know it's 266,000 Naira, which comes to about 229 Canadian dollars, right? So depending on the country that you are in, you need to go to the British Council website in your country, you choose the general test, you choose your date and your location, and the available dates will show up with the cost. So far we have about 259 Canadian dollars for WES, and then we have about 300 Canadian dollars for the IELTS, right? So putting that together, it comes to 556 Canadian dollars. So that is what you will need before you open your express entry account, right? Because you need to have your language test done, you need to have your education credential assessment done so that you can fill in the necessary details for your express entry account. I'm not including the cost of your passports, the cost of your birth certificates, and your other family, accompanying family members, the cost of all that, because it's country dependent, and I do not know how much it will cost, whether you're in Nigeria, you're in Kenya, you're in Ghana, right? But then you can do your research and add that. And you're not forgetting about some transport costs, running around, getting things done. So these are what you need to get, the essential things that you need to get. You need to also have a passport to fill in your passport details. So you should make the inquiries in your home country to know how much it's going to cost you to make a new passport. If you don't already have one, make a passport for your kids, for your spouse, whatever the case may be, right? So this is now these, like I mentioned, these are costs prior to your receiving an invitation to apply. The invitation to apply is when draws have been done, whether it's a healthcare draw, an education draw, a trades draw, and your score has been called up, and you've been sent an invitation to apply for permanent residence in Canada. Now, when you have been called to apply for permanent residence in Canada, you need to submit additional documents. Also, you need to pay for the application process and also what we call the right to permanent residence fee. So let's get right into one of the things that you need is a police report, right, in every country that you've lived in the past 10 years for more than 6 months. So that is going to depend on how many countries you have to apply for police report from, whether a single country, 2 countries or more, and then you need to find out how much that is going to cost. I did a police report from Ghana. I had lived in other countries before, but it had been prior to 10 years, so there was no need to get a police report from them. And in Ghana, the police reports cost about, I think, 110 Ghana cedis, which is about 10 Canadian dollars, right? So you add that to the other cost that you had to pay for before getting into the express entry. So if you're applying with your spouse, you need to get a police. They need to also apply for a police report. But children do not apply for a police report, so it's just for the adults. So whatever country that you've lived in for more than 6 months within the past 10 years, you need to apply for a police report. So you need to make those inquiries and be sure how much. The next important thing that you will need is a medical report. You need to have medical examination done for each family member that you are traveling with. You need to find out what facilities are mandated to do this test and how much it's going to cost you, right? You do not need the medical examination before you are invited to apply. In Ghana, one popular place that we do this is the Akai House Hospital, and they charge differently for children and for adults. So for children under 15 years, it's about 550 Ghana cedis, and for adults, it was about 1,002 Ghana cedis. So when you convert this to Canadian dollars, this is about 49 Canadian dollars for children under 15 and about 106 Canadian dollars for adults, right? So if you're coming with a spouse, you know that it's 106 Canadian dollars times 2. That is for those in Ghana, and then for children, it's 49 Canadian dollars. I'm going to pay this directly to the hospital. So you can choose not to go to Akai House. You can go to the other facilities that are mandated to do this for Canada. If you're in another country, you need the settlement funds or a proof of funds. The tricky part of this is that sometimes people do put in the exact amounts that they need to present, right, in their local currency. But we know that currencies can be unstable. By the time that the IRCC officer is going through your documents, their exchange rate might change, and when they do their conversions, they may send you a letter saying that your proof of funds are not enough, and so send us another bank statement. So the key is that whatever money you put into your bank account before you are called or when you are called, do not spend that money. Keep it there as an investment you are making into your journey, okay? And also, if it is possible, try and save a bit above the exact amount, so that in case your currency fluctuates, you are not found wanting. You know that, oh, no matter how my currency falls, I'm within the range that they need. Another thing that you can do is also to open a dollar account. If it's easy and it's allowed in your country, you can open a dollar account and be saving into. So I'm going to run you through just maybe for a single person to a family of 3. But when you go to the website canada.ca, you have a full list of the size of your family and how much you're bringing in as settlement funds. And a lot of times people feel that the amount is big, but truth be told, they arrived at this amount using the lowest, family income level. When you arrive here, you realize that you really need money to be able to do a few things, get your accommodation, get appropriate clothing, get your groceries, move around, get a vehicle if that's what in your plan, right? So they use this benchmark to see that what's the minimum that you need to survive in Canada's economy. So first off is, if you're coming in as a single person, you're not coming with a family, or you do not have a family, you are just a single person, it's going to cost you 14,690 Canadian dollars. You should have that minimum in your bank account to prove that you can take care of yourself once you arrive. For a family of 2, it's going to cost you 18,288 Canadian dollars. And for a family of 3, which is a husband and wife with 1 child, is going to cost you 22,483 Canadian dollars. So all these are minimum amounts that you should have as proof of funds for your settlement in Canada. And you must remember that they do not accept, real estate. So I have this building somewhere, this is the value it is. No. Also, you can show proof of funds in a joint bank statement with your spouse. You can also use money in your spouse's bank account, but with that, your spouse needs to write a letter showing that these funds are available to you when you arrive in Canada. Yes, they know that you're coming with your spouse, right? But they need you to write that letter to show that when you come to Canada, your spouse is going to give you that money to settle in. That is when you are the principal applicant. So this is what you need to know regarding proof of funds. So I advise that you keep your eyes on the canada.ca website, because these values may change, based on the economy of Canada, so that you're always on track, right? Because when you submit your application before the changes happen, they are not going to ask you to top up. But if it was right before you go to ITU, then you need to top up. Now that you've worked on your proof of funds and you're saving towards that, you need to also know that as much as opening the Express Entry account is free, your permanent residence application processing is not free. So you need to pay a processing fee and also a right to permanent residence fee. Okay, you are going to pay this for each adult. For each child, the processing fee is 950 Canadian dollars, and the right to permanent residence fee is 575 Canadian dollars. So you can pay the processing fee, which is 950 Canadian dollars, and then now when you see that your processing has advanced, then you pay, or has been approved, and then now you pay for the right to permanent residence application. But you will not receive your co-payer until you've made full payment. But usually you are advised to pay the two together, which comes to 1,525. So that is the amount for the principal applicant. If you are coming with your spouse, you pay the same amount for your spouse as well. And for each child, you are going to pay an additional 260 Canadian dollars. So now that we are clear what it's going to cost you, prior to getting your invitation to apply, and after you have received your invitation to apply, I'm going to break down and give you an example. Let's say a family of 3, a husband, a wife, and 1 child, who are applying through the Express Entry, come into Canada through the Federal Skilled Worker Program. If you found this content useful so far, don't forget to ask all your questions in the comment section. Like and subscribe so that the channel can grow and we can reach more people. If you're watching without subscribing, please subscribe and help the channel to grow. So let's go into the example. So for 2 adults, the IELTS is going to cost on average 1,208 Canadian dollars. And for your educational credentials, it's going to cost you 512 Canadian dollars. That's for the 2 of you. And for settlement funds for a family of 3, it's going to be 22,483 Canadian dollars. Processing fee, right to permanent residence fee for 2 adults, that's 3,050 Canadian dollars. For your child, it's going to cost you an additional 260 Canadian dollars. Not forgetting your air tickets, which on average, let's say about $1,000 for
each person. So that's going to be 3,000 Canadian dollars, bringing it to a total of 30,513 Canadian dollars. So this is the basic, we are not including the birth certificates and the passports and medical records, police reports that are specific to your country.
So this is a breakdown of how much it's going to cost you to bring your family into Canada if you're applying through the Express Entry and the Federal Skilled Worker Program. Remember that if you are in Canada and you were called through the Federal Skilled Worker, you are going to still need to provide evidence of your proof of funds unless you are coming through the Canadian Experienced Class Program. Right, with that you already have a job, and so they do not need you to provide proof of funds. Some people make a lot of mistakes in that regard, that they are already in Canada, they are either schooling or they are working, and they forget that they were called through the Federal Skilled Worker Program and not the Canadian Experience Class, which requires you showing 1 year of experience working in Canada, right? But with the Federal Skilled Worker Program, you show experience of working in your field, either from Canada or from abroad. So I hope that you found this video useful in your planning, so that you do not miss out when you have received an ITA, but you put in your application fully prepared. I wish you all the best. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. See you in my next video.